Welcome to part 2 of Simplicity's S9470 SewAlong. I encourage you to watch the tutorials listed on the following slides prior to starting this SewAlong to either refresh your memory or to learn the sewing skill mentioned in order to complete this SewAlong. Here's what we'll be covering in today's video: stay stitching, attaching flounce to bodice, and prep work for the invisible zipper. Lastly, if you're new to sewing or just need a refresher, check out my free Sewing Basics video series by clicking the link at the top of your screen. If you already know how to do my sew-alongs and videos, and if you'll be kind enough to watch at least one ad should it appear, which enables me to keep bringing you free content, feel free to skip ahead to go straight to the pattern spotlight. Skip ahead to the 4-minute mark. Here's a little bit about how I do my Sew With Me sew-alongs.
Techniques, I'm going to put it on the website and I will reference it in the sew-along itself. So for example, we're working on a pair of pants that has a fly front. So when we get to that portion in the sew-along, I'll do a little bit of it, in instructions in the sew-along itself, but then I'm going to refer you over to the website to go ahead and look at that video, that particular video, look it over, study it, do your own sample if you want, because I'm big on that technique binder. So go ahead and and do that, and then once you get a good hang of what that technique is, then come back onto the sew-along itself and do that particular technique with the sew-along. So that way we both kind of benefit. You still get the instruction of the actual sew-along, step by step of how to do a particular thing. But it's less editing on my part because, like I said, I'll mention it in the sew-along itself, but then I'll refer you over to the website to actually find that particular technique and go ahead, review it, look at it. And then once you master it or enough to where even you sew along, at the same time and install it in that particular sew-along that you're doing at that time. So hopefully that will be okay for you, because I think I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone for watching my videos. I love to upload the videos. I love to share my knowledge. And I'm pretty sure that you guys love to get free content. So in order for me to keep uploading free content, I just need you to do some simple things for me, some very simple things. The first thing is just to hit the subscribe button. So just make sure that you hit that. So you're subscribed to my channel. Hit the notification bell so when I upload a new video, you don't miss out and you get to see it. And then also, if there's an ad on my videos, they're typically anywhere from 10 seconds to maybe up to 2 minutes. Just go ahead and either watch it or do something else you want to do in that particular time that ad is running. So use the restroom, go get something to drink or something like that. Because that way, if you let that ad run, I benefit from YouTube, and that way I can still keep creating content and uploading it for free. Okay. Enough of that boring stuff. Back to the sew-along. Please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And also hit the notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. Thanks again, and keep on watching. Welcome to part 2 of Simplicity's S9470. So we'll be starting with 1. Basically is to stay stitch the front pieces, neckline, and the back pieces. But for right now, I'm just going to do the front so I can keep the tissue paper with the backs, and I'll do the back when I get there. So I will be stay stitching the front neckline. Remember, from the shoulder points into the middle of the neck. And then I will be doing the pleats, and I'll probably show you the pleats on camera so you can kind of see that. Okay, so I'm back from the sewing machine, and you can see that I stay stitched the neckline Okay, and if you have not watched the fabric spotlight for this particular fabric here, let me just tell you that this is a chalice fiber rayon. So I will be using, or am using, a Microtech sharp needle. The number is 70/10. And I also am using a walking foot on my sewing machine. Okay, but all that information and more is in that fabric spotlight, so I encourage you to look at that. All right, so pleats, right? So here's what the pleats look like. Let me show the end frame. Okay, so you got to bring the solid line to the dotted line, okay? And then once you finish, you're going to stitch across. So you basically just bring, start it this way, the solid line like that, and it gives you arrows. Bring it over to the dotted line. And as you notice here, I don't know if you can see at the bottom here, right here, when you bring this over, you're actually going to overlap the start of the solid line. Okay, so that's part of how they made it. So it's like that. All right, and then you just start again from there up. Okay, and then when you finish, you're just going to base across the bottom. Now, most people, some people, they chalk their lines here. They can also use a marking pen utensil. Here's another tip that you can do is if you have pens like me that has the different color tips, you can make each one of the pleat that particular color, so you know, like green will go with green. So you'll put, you know, green like that in your fabric, like so, at the tips, and then you can just snip the bottoms with your scissors, and then you'll just bring green to green, matching the snips at the bottom. And then you can make that one, you know, red. Excuse me. You know, at the tip, for example. And you just know that red will go with red. You know, of course, you're doing this in your fabric, okay? So that's another tip that you can do for pleats. All right, just because it has this pattern on it, it's hard to see. You can kind of see I started kind of using my chalk, and you can see in the white, there we go, in the white you can kind of see the blue, right? So that's fine. But I also just marked the beginning of it with a pen, okay? And then where the dotted lines were, I marked that with I just clipped into it, because all I'm doing is bringing this bottom to over here. So that's how I'm going to do mine. All right, so turn it this way since we're all moving in this direction. All right, so I'm just gonna keep my pins here because we're not sewing across the top pins, right? We're sewing across the bottom. So I'm just gonna leave it there, grab it, and that's where my first mark is, right there. So I'm gonna grab it, and it's gonna meet up with this pin here and that end part there, okay? So I'm gonna grab it. It's going to, where's my pen? My pen dropped out. Anyway, here's the top to here. And I'm just gonna pin the bottom. And make sure my pins are secure. So, looks like that. And now you're just gonna baste across this bottom here to secure it. Okay, so back from the sewing machine, and I just basically basted across the bottom there to keep the pleats in place. Okay, and I also placed some pins here just to keep that pleat in place until I can kind of press it. Okay, and so now you may have like a little excess fabric at your pleat there. You can just go ahead and trim that away like so. So just trimmed this little portion away. So now you got a even finished bottom. All right, so moving on. All right, so we are going to need the back at this point. So remember to stay stitch the back, going from the shoulder to the neckline, middle of the neckline on both pieces. And then you're going to stitch together the overarm, okay, starting from the neck down to the arm, and then from the waist all the way up the underarm to the arm, right? And then you're going to reinforce the underarm for a second time. Remember, reinforcing is at a 2.0. And if I didn't mention it before, stitching, I do it at a 2.0 as well. Okay, so go ahead and do that and come back. Okay, so back from the sewing table, and as you can see, did the shoulders and I finished off my seams, and I did the underarm and basically the side seam and finished that off. And under here, you're supposed to reinforce it, so make sure to reinforce that curve underneath the underarm. So at this point, you're going to need pattern pieces 5 and 6, I want to say, which is the skirts. All right, and what you're going to do is just stay stitch the upper edge here. Remember, go from the side seam to whatever the center front is. And then once you finish the stay stitching on both pieces, we're going to join the pieces at the side seams. Okay, so go ahead and do that and come back. Okay, so I have come back from the sewing machine and stitched the upper edges of the peplum, if you would say. Stay stitched it. Again, stay stitch at about a 1/4 inch for me. I think the pattern instruction says a 1/2 inch, so you know, to follow either one. And attach the front to back at the side seams. All right, and I went ahead and serged it. So the pattern instructions also tell you to at the center back where this notch is right here, that notch is right there, to sew, you know, at your 5/8 here, and that's in preparation for your invisible zipper. But I do my invisible zipper a little bit different, so I left mine open. So follow either one of the methods. If you know my method, then you know that's the reason why we left that open. If you want to follow the instructions, go ahead and sew that little bit of portion, which is probably about 2 inches or so. We are moving on to number 9. Now throughout here, they said to hem the sleeves and to hem the bottom of the peplum, but I'm going to just wait to the end to do that. So if you notice I'm not doing that, that's the reason why. It's not that I'm just forgetful, it's because I'm doing it on purpose. Okay, so moving on to number 9. We're going to attach the peplum to the bodice with right sides together. Now, because we had the pleats in here, see the pleats there, it shifted the center front, right, a little bit. So in order to find your center fronts, all you're going to do is take your 2 side seams, okay, put them together, and where that pin is, that is your center front. So you just mark it. You can clip it with your scissors, or you can just put a pin in there to mark the center front of your bodice so you know where that is. And then you're just going to attach right side to right side of your peplum, and all the way to the center backs, okay? And once you do that, you're going to stitch them at the 5/8 seam allowance, and you're going to trim it, and then you can clip your curves to make it lie flat, and then you're going to finish your seams, okay? So go ahead and do that and come back. We are back from the sewing machine. We joined the bodice to the peplum, okay? And as you can see, I serged my my seam here, pressed it toward the bodice, okay? So next, what we're going to do is prep for the invisible zipper. So I do my invisible zipper, which is different from how the instructions tell you to do it, okay? Now remember, I told you we did not stitch down here below. And what I find important to do is stabilize where you're going to put the zipper at. So this is just fusible interfacing, woven fusible interfacing here. And I cut it to about 1-inch strips. And what I'm going to do, and this is the wrong side facing up, I'm just going to bond it to the edge of the center back seam, okay? All the way down, like this, all the way down, and going, oops, can't see that, huh, a little bit, slightly going past where we're gonna do the stitching at the bottom, just so pretend it's here. So this is the notch. You can see it, the notch is, well, you may or may not be able to see it, but the notch is right here. And I'm going to do the interfacing maybe about a 1/4 inch past that, okay? So just adhere it on both sides, to the center back, to the wrong side, okay? Go ahead and do that. Now at this point, since it was already bonded on the other side, you can kind of go ahead and iron it, okay? Meaning going back and forth, because you already adhered it by pressing it on the other side. Now what this does is it creates, even though it's still drapey and flowy, it gives the this seam more stability when you insert the invisible zipper, okay? You can see it, there's a little bit of difference. I don't know if you can really tell, excuse me, a little bit of different, but it just gives it a little bit more structure. But once you do it and you feel it, you'll understand, especially if you're using the type of fabric that I'm using, which is a rayon chalice. Once you put that in there, you know, leave me in the comments that you're like, oh yeah, I feel the difference. So go ahead and do the other side and we'll be finished for today. If you made this pattern or intend to, or if you're going to follow along with me, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content. Thanks again for watching and happy sewing.